And you've asked for a meeting with the Prime Minister.
Mm-hmm.
You've sent the letter, today? When are you expecting a response, and what do you think he will say to you?
Well, I would hope you would recognise the urgency of a meeting. And just to say, I mean, during the pandemic, the TUC worked very closely with Rishi Sunak in developing the furlough scheme alongside the CBI. It seems that the Prime Minister has forgotten some of those basic lessons from the pandemic, that actually we come up with better solutions when we work together. And, you know, the NHS staffing crisis isn't going to solve itself. Neither is the staffing crisis in other parts of our public services. 1 in 6 new teachers leaves the profession within a year of qualifying. There is something wrong with our public services, and that's what happens when you have a decade of underfunding, understaffing and real terms pay cuts for public sector workers.
I mean, you say he's forgotten some of the principles. What do you think he's forgotten?
I think he's forgotten the value of sitting down and reaching an agreement and taking ideas from people outside his own cabinet. And frankly, you know, I think it'd be really good for Rishi Sunak to talk to our unions, but also to talk to some of those frontline paramedics, those physiotherapists, the teachers in classrooms, civil servants, people who for the last decade have been placed under real pressures on workload, who feel at breaking point. Let the Prime Minister talk to those workers and understand their concerns and their issues. I think that's what any decent employer would do. And as someone responsible for the employment of millions of public sector workers, that's exactly what the Prime Minister should do as well.
I mean, there are serious calls here, Paul, and some accusations as well, that perhaps the government is not being entirely fair in these negotiations. Now, you want to have a meeting with the Prime Minister about this. Are you going to tell him that you think he's sabotaging the negotiations, that they're not being fair?
Well, absolutely. I mean, I'll say to the Prime Minister directly what I'd say to you this morning. And, you know, the key thing for me, I'm not interested in political point scoring. I'm not interested in meeting the Prime Minister just for, you know, tea and sympathy or indeed beer and sandwiches. I'm interested in meeting the Prime Minister. Our unions are interested in meeting the Prime Minister so we can resolve these disputes and put pay in the pockets of hard-working public service workers and deliver the public services that the people of this country deserve. And the public's verdict is pretty clear. 2/3 of the public blame the government for mishandling these strikes. It's time for the government to listen to the public, listen to its own workforce, get round the table with unions.